Krishna 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 Hey. Krishna 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 Rakshamam. Krishna 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 Pahimam. Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rama Raghava Rakshamam. Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Krishna Keshava Pahimam. So that's how Prabhupada starts the introduction to the Krishna book. Does anybody know where that is? What that is? Where it's from? Anybody know anything about that prayer or mantra that we just chanted? Yeah, did everybody hear that? Lord Chaitanya, as he was walking along the road, Lord Chaitanya used to chant that. And that's stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 7, text 96. Okay, so we're going to read the first chapter of the Krishna book today. We're going to read the whole thing. But first I'd like to show everybody, this is what you call the Krishna book. Okay? This is the first printing of the Krishna book. Very big and impressive. Big and impressive book for a big impressive subject. This is designed by Prabhupada, every aspect of it. The size, the pictures, everything. And this was not just some coffee table book. We used to distribute this. Raise your hand if you distributed this book. Yeah. And back in the early days, I used to distribute this. We used to go door to door in college dormitories and distribute this book, and students wanted it. They took it. Big book like that and all. So anyway, we're going to start with the first chapter here. Yeah. This is part 1. There was a second part, maybe there was 3 parts, I can't remember, in the first printing. I'm not going to get in, I don't know. Okay, so anyway, the advent of Lord Krishna. Once the world was overburdened by the unnecessary defense force of different kings, who were actually demons. That's significant, okay? But were posing themselves as the royal order. At that time, the whole world became perturbed, and the predominating deity of this earth, known as Bhumi, went to see Lord Brahma to tell of her calamities due to the demoniac kings. Bhumi assumed the shape of a cow and presented herself before Lord Brahma with tears in her eyes. She was bereaved and was weeping just to invoke the Lord's compassion. She related the calamitous position of the earth, and after hearing this, Lord Brahma became much aggrieved, and he at once started for the ocean of milk, where Lord Vishnu resides. Lord Brahma was accompanied by all the demigods, headed by Lord Shiva, and Bhumi also followed. Arriving on the shore of the milk ocean, Lord Brahma began to pacify Lord Vishnu, who formerly saved the earth planet by assuming the transcendental form of a boar. Correct. In the Vedic mantras, there is a particular type of prayer called. Okay. Generally, the demigods offer their obeisances unto Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by chanting the Purusha Shukta. And it is understood herein that the predominating deity of every planet can see the Supreme Lord of this universe, Brahma, whenever there is some disturbance in his planet. And Brahma can approach the Supreme Lord Vishnu not by seeing him directly, but by standing on the shore of the ocean of milk. There is a planet within this universe called Svetadweep, and on that planet there is an ocean of milk. It is understood from various Vedic literatures that just as there is the ocean of salt water within this planet, there are various kinds of oceans in other planets. Somewhere there is an ocean of milk, somewhere there is an ocean of oil, somewhere there is an ocean of liquor, and many other types of oceans. Purusha Sukta is the standard prayer which the demigods recite to appease the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kshirodakshai Vishnu, because he is lying on the ocean of milk. Because he is lying on the ocean of milk, he is called Kshirodakshai Vishnu. Shira, of course, is milk. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, through whom all the incarnations within this universe appear. After all the demigods offered the Purusha Sukta prayer to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they apparently heard no response. Then Lord Brahma personally sat in meditation, and there was a message transmission from Lord Vishnu to Brahma. Brahma then broadcast the message to the demigods. That is the system of receiving Vedic knowledge. The Vedic knowledge is received first by Brahma from the Supreme Personality of Godhead through the medium of the heart. As stated in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, Tene Brahma Rida, the transcendental knowledge of the Vedas was transmitted to Lord Brahma through the heart. Here also, in the same way, only Brahma could understand the message transmitted by Lord Vishnu, and he broadcast it to the demigods for their immediate action. Why do you think that was, that only Lord Brahma could understand the message? It says here, only Lord Brahma could understand the message transmitted by Lord Vishnu. Anybody want to venture a guess? Huh? Because he had 4 heads? Well, I don't know. I never read anything. He's the head of all the demigods by far. I mean, he's the most elevated, the most purified. Maybe he was the only one who had the qualification to receive that message through the heart. That would be my philosophical speculation on that point. Yeah, he's the most elevated, but head and shoulders, he's above all the other demigods. The message was the Supreme Personality of Godhead will appear on the earth very soon, along with his supreme powerful potencies. And as long as he remains on the earth planet to execute his mission and annihilate the demons, and his mission of annihilation of the demons and establishing the devotees, the demigod should also remain there to assist him. They should all immediately take birth in the family of the Yadu dynasty, wherein the Lord will also appear in due course of time. See, so it's saying here, the message was from Lord Vishnu that the demigod should take birth in the Yadu dynasty, right? And then the Lord is going to also appear in due course of time. So here's a question. How is it that these, in the very first couple sentences here, it says, the earth was overburdened by the unnecessary defense force of different kings. So how is it that these different kings were able to become so powerful that it required an incarnation, all the demigods to incarnate in the Yadu dynasty, and Krishna himself to come in due course of time? How is that possible, that these kings, different kings, became so powerful that it required the demigods to take birth on earth and Krishna to come to deal with it? Yeah. Okay, why'd they come? Okay, but there is a reason why they came, because they... Okay, that's one answer. Anybody else want to... Yeah, go ahead. Rujana? Yeah, that's right. Rabindranath got it. The demons actually, just like the demigods are taking birth in the Yadu dynasty, the demons actually took birth. And these demons were the demons that, in the eighth canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, that, that pastime where Vishnu and, the demons are fighting against the demigods, and the demigods were losing, and they asked Vishnu for help, and Vishnu personally came and killed. Who did he kill? Who's the demon that Krishna personally killed? Yeah, he killed Kalanemi. And who did Kalanemi become in his next birth? Yeah, right. See, this is like a reenactment of the, well, anyway, I'm going to jump ahead here. But I'm just going to read you the Vedic evidence to support this point, because I know Rabindranath is going to ask me for it at the end of the class, so I'll give it now. Okay. So this is Vaisampayana, who is a disciple of Srila Vyasadeva, and he recited the Mahabharata to Janamejaya, who is the son of Maharaj Parikshit. So this is his statement. He says, "O best of monarchs, just as humankind was flourishing, powerful, and demoniac creatures began to take birth from the wives of earthly kings, once the godly Adityas who administered the universe fought with their wicked cousins, the Daityas, and vanquished them. Bereft of their power and positions, the Daityas began to take birth on this planet, having carefully calculated that they could easily become the gods of the earth, bringing it under their demoniac rule, and thus it happened, O Mighty One, that the Asuras began to appear among different creatures and communities." So that's Vaisampayana, a disciple of Vyasadeva, speaking to Janamejaya. So that's the explanation of what was going on back then. And I'll read you one more reference here. This is once again Vaisampayana speaking. "As these demoniac creatures continued to take birth on the earth herself could not bear the weight of their presence. Having fallen from their positions in the higher planets, the sons of Diti and Danu thus appeared in this world as monarchs, endowed with great strength and in many other forms. They were bold and haughty, and they virtually surrounded the water-bounded earth, ready to crush those who opposed them. They harassed the teachers, rulers, merchants, and workers of the earth and other creatures, moving about by the hundreds and thousands. They began to slay the earth's creatures, and they brought terror to the world. Unconcerned with the godly culture of the Brahmins, they threatened the sages who sat peacefully in their forest ashrams, for the so-called kings were maddened by the strength of their bodies." So this is what we're, when you're hearing about the Battle of Kurukshetra, you're actually hearing about a battle between the Devas and the Asuras that was reenacted here on the Earth planet. And that's what we're hearing about even now, that this unnecessary defense force of the different kings, Prabhupada says, who were actually demons. And they weren't just any old little petty demons like, we meet out on Sankirtan or something like that. These were the, big-time major league demons of, the higher planetary systems, who were, once again, taking birth here on Earth for the purpose of taking it over, and then Krishna comes and, with the demigods, and they have it out. Okay, so reading on. The Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, Krishna, personally appeared as the son of Vasudeva. Before he appeared, all the demigods, along with their wives, appeared in different pious families in the world just to assist the Lord in executing his mission. The exact word used here is tat priyartam, which means the demigods should appear on the earth in order to please the Lord. In other words, any living entity who lives only to satisfy the Lord is a demigod. The demigods were further informed that the plenary portion of Lord Krishna, Ananta, who is maintaining the universal planets by extending his millions of hoods, would also appear on earth before Lord Krishna's appearance. They were also informed that the external potency of Vishnu, Maya, with whom all the conditioned souls are enamored, would also appear just to execute the purpose of the Supreme Lord. After instructing and pacifying all the demigods, as well as Bhumi, with sweet words, Lord Brahma, the father of all Prajapatis, or progenitors of the universal population, departed for his own abode, the highest material planet called Brahmaloka. The leader of the Yadu dynasty, King Surasena, was ruling over the country known as Mathura, as well as the district known as Shurasena. On account of the rule of King Shurasena, Mathura became the capital city of all the kings of the Yadus. Mathura was also made the capital of the kings of the Yadu dynasty because the Yadus were a very pious family and knew that Mathura is the place where Lord Sri Krishna lives eternally, just as he also lives in Dwarka. Once upon a time, Vasudeva, the son of Shurasena, just after marrying Devaki, was going home on his chariot with his newly wedded wife. The father of Devaki, known as Devaka, had contributed a sufficient dowry because he was very affectionate toward his daughter. He had contributed hundreds of chariots completely decorated with gold equipment. At that time, Kamsa, the son of Ugrasena, in order to please his sister Devaki, had voluntarily taken the reins of the horses of Vasudev's chariot and was driving. According to the custom of Vedic civilization, when a girl is married, the brother takes the sister and brother-in-law to their home. Because the newly married girl may feel too much separation from her father's family, the brother goes with her until she reaches her father-in-law's house. The full dowry contributed by Devaka was as follows: 400 elephants fully decorated with golden garlands, 15,000 decorated horses, 1,800 chariots. He also arranged for 200 beautiful girls to follow his daughter. The Kshatriya system of marriage, still current in India, dictates that when a Kshatriya is married, a few dozen of the bride's girlfriends, in addition to the bride, go to the house of the king. The followers of the queen are called maidservants, but actually they act as friends of the queen. This practice is prevalent from time immemorial, traceable at least to the time before the advent of Lord Krishna 5,000 years ago. So Vasudeva brought home another 200 beautiful girls along with his wife. While the bride and bridegroom were passing along the chariot, there were different kinds of musical instruments playing to indicate the auspicious moment. There were conch shells, bugle drums, and kettle drums combined together. They were vibrating a nice concert. The procession was passing very pleasingly, and Kamsa was driving the chariot, when suddenly there was a miraculous sound vibrated from the sky, which especially announced to Kamsa, "Kamsa, you are such a fool. You are driving the chariot of your sister and your brother-in-law, but you do not know that the 8th child of this sister will kill you." Kamsa was the son of Ugrasena of the Bhoja dynasty. It is said that Kamsa was the most demonic of all the Bhoja dynasty kings. Immediately after hearing the prophecy from the sky, he caught hold of Devaki's hair and was just about to kill her with his sword. Vasudeva was astonished at Kamsa's behavior, and in order to pacify the cruel, shameless brother-in-law, he began to speak as follows. With great reason and evidence, he said, "My dear brother-in-law, Kamsa, you are the most famous king of the Bhoja dynasty, and people know that you are the greatest warrior and valiant king. How is it that you are so infuriated that you are prepared to kill a woman who is your own sister at this auspicious time of her marriage? Why should you be so much afraid of death? Death is already born along with your birth. From the very day you took your birth, you began to die. Suppose you are 25 years old. That means you have already died 25 years. Every moment, every second, you are dying. Why then should you be so much afraid of death? Final death is inevitable. You may die either today or in 100 years. You cannot avoid death. Why should you be so much afraid of death? Actually, death means annihilation of the present body. As soon as the present body stops functioning and mixes with the 5 elements of material nature, the living entity within the body accepts another body, according to his present action and reaction. It is just as when a man walks on the street. He puts forward his foot, and when he is confident that his foot is situated on sound ground, he lifts another foot. In this way, he lifts the other foot. In this way, one after another, the body changes and the soul transmigrates. See how the plant worms change from one twig to another so carefully. Similarly, the living entity changes his body as soon as the higher authorities decide on his next body. Does anybody know that verse from the Bhagavatam? Karmana 5 and 8 today 9. Does it go? That's the one. So, as long as the living entity is conditioned within this material world, he must take material bodies one after another. His next particular body is offered by the laws of nature according to the actions and reactions of this life. This body is exactly like one of the bodies which we always see in dreams. During our dream, by the way, this is some of the best "we're not this body" instruction you're ever going to come across, throughout any of the Vedic literatures. Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya. This is par excellence instruction here that's being given by Vasudeva. This body is exactly like one of the bodies which we always see in dreams. During our dreams of sleep, we create so many bodies according to mental creation. We have seen gold and we have seen a mountain. So in a dream, we can see a golden mountain by combining the two ideas. Sometimes in dreams, we see that we have a body which is flying in the sky. And at that time, we completely forget our present body. Similarly, these bodies are changing. And when you have one body, you forget the past body. During a dream, we make contact with so many new kinds of bodies, but when we are awake, we forget them all. And actually, these material bodies are the creations of our mental activities. But at the present moment, we do not recollect our past bodies. Vasudeva continues, the nature of the mind is flickering. Sometimes it accepts something and immediately it rejects the same thing. Accepting and rejecting is the process of the mind in contact with the 5 objects of sense gratification: form, taste, smell, sound, and touch. In its speculative way, the mind comes in touch with the objects of sense gratification. And when the living entity desires a particular type of body, he gets it. Therefore, the body is an offering by the laws of material nature. The living entity accepts a body and comes out again into the material world to enjoy or suffer according to the construction of the body. Unless we have a particular type of body, we cannot enjoy or suffer according to our mental proclivities inherited from the previous life. The particular type of body is actually offered to us according to our mental condition at the time of death. He continues, the luminous planets like the sun, moon, or stars reflect themselves in different types of reservoirs like water, oil, or ghee. The reflection moves according to the movement of the reservoir. The reflection of the moon is on the water, and the moving water makes the moon also appear to be moving. But actually the moon is not moving. Similarly, by mental concoction, the living entity attains different kinds of bodies, although he actually has no connection with such bodies. But on account of illusion, being enchanted by the influence of Maya, the living entity thinks he belongs to a particular type of body. That is the way of conditioned life. Suppose the living entity is now in a human form of body. He thinks that he belongs to the human community or a particular country or particular place. He identifies himself in that way and unnecessarily prepares for another body which is not required by him. Such desires and mental concoctions are the cause of different types of bodies. The covering influence of material nature is so strong that the living entity is satisfied in whatever body he gets, and he identifies with that body with great pleasure. Therefore, I beg to request you not to be overwhelmed by the dictation of your body and mind. Vasudeva thus requested Kamsa not to be envious of his newly married sister. One should not be envious of anyone, because envy is the cause of fear both in this world and in the next when one is before Yamaraj, the Lord of punishment after death. Vasudeva appealed to Kamsa on behalf of Devaki, stating that she was his younger sister. He also appealed at an auspicious moment at the time of marriage. A younger sister or brother are supposed to be protected as one's children. This is Vasudeva speaking. The position is overall so delicate, Vasudeva reasoned, that if you kill her, it will go against your high reputation. Vasudeva tried to pacify Kamsa by good instruction as well as by philosophical discrimination. But Kamsa was not to be pacified because his association was demoniac. Because of his demoniac associations, he was always a demon, although born in a very high royal family. A demon never cares for any good instruction. He is just like a determined thief. One can give him moral instruction, but it will not be effective. Similarly, those who are demoniac or atheistic by nature can hardly assimilate any good instruction, however authorized it may be. That is the difference between demigod and demon. Those who can accept good instruction and try to live their lives in that way are called demigods, and those who are unable to take good instruction are called demons. So just read the rest of this paragraph and then I'll come back to that. Failing in his attempt to pacify Kamsa, Vasudeva wondered how he would protect his wife Devaki. When there is an imminent danger, an intelligent person should try to avoid the dangerous position as far as possible. But if in spite of endeavoring by all intelligence, one fails to avoid the dangerous position, there is no fault on his part. One should try his best to execute his duties, but if but if the attempt fails, he is not at fault. So just one little incident happened this morning that gave me like a kind of a realization on this point here about, Prabhupada says, those who can accept good instructions and try to live their lives in that way are called demigods, and those who are unable to take good instruction are called demons. So I was just reflecting upon how fortunate we are to two things. One, to have come in contact with these good instructions, and also to have the association of people who are trying to live their lives in that way. It's actually a great benediction. And one little incident happened this morning, and I'm going to say this at the risk of embarrassing somebody, but it's glorification, so I hope it won't embarrass them too much. That helped me really kind of understand this point. I had some dealing with Mother Ishana, Ratnabhushan's wife. I share the internet with Ratnabhushan and Magendra and Balaram. So I have to pay every so often. We have to pay. We share it. So there was some mix-up. I paid her back about a month ago, and somehow or another I got another bill, and I got confused, and I paid again. So I bumped into her. She this morning she was walking, and she said, you paid already, and don't you remember you gave me cash back about a month? I said, yeah, actually I do remember, but I thought that was for the previous year or something like that. This is for the, she said, no, you. And she said, do you want your check back? I said, sure. So the point is this, that I've been here 23 years now, and I used to go for japa walks in the morning, and Mother Ishana walks, and I used to see her. I'd be coming back, she'd be, and I would never get, just because of, doing Sankirtan and being used to in different situations, interacting with people in different ways, it would just try to be friendly. I'd try to catch her eye and say, Haribol Mata, good morning, something like that. Nothing, never. And even if I go up into the gift shop, if I have have to purchase something or something like that, it's just, just poker face business, And to be honest, it got to the point, this is 23 years, obviously there's many different little incidents, times come up when you contact the person. And it got to the point where I was thinking, you know what, I think this lady has some emotional problem, I think there's some, because I couldn't, it was beyond me to think that somebody could be just so. So then this morning, anyway, when that happened, within, it was just took 15 seconds, but during that exchange, I could immediately understand that, as soon as she started talking, I said, wait, no. She was really immediately, it was very pleasant, very friendly, very focused, she knew exactly what was going on. And I immediately got the realization that, no, there's nothing, absolutely zero, anything wrong with her. Quite the contrary, she's, a very nice person, very, good, very attractive, good qualities. And it was just that, and I immediately understood that, she was just a very serious devotee. She's just, in her general behavior, she's like a model, ideal example of being chaste. It's like when it's required, she would behave exactly what was required for that situation. But otherwise, no. When there's no need for that because that's the culture. I mean, that is what Prabhupada taught us, right? That when there's no necessity for it, then men and women don't socialize and just don't yuck it up and like that. When there's some service required to be done, okay, then they interact, and then when that's not there, then that's it, So I was going, wow, that's amazing. And then it just immediately got me thinking about, well, yeah, that's one example, but then I just realized, well, there's so many examples like that, so many examples of devotees who just, they're so sincere. And it's not like because there's somebody watching them, or it's just like, the expression work ethic. Work ethic means that it's when you say somebody has a good work ethic, it means they've understood that there's the principle of that there's a virtue in working hard, and it's something that is praiseworthy, or it's a good quality. So devotees have like a surrender ethic, just like somebody might have a good work ethic in the material world. Devotees have a surrender ethic. In other words, they've just understood the principle that it's the right thing to do, it's the good thing to try to be a very sincere devotee, and without being told by anybody else, without, they're just doing it out of the, the goodness of their heart and the intelligence and good qualities that they have. And so that's a wonderful thing. That's a wonderful thing, really. And I was just reflecting how fortunate I was to be living in the association of people who have voluntarily, made that choice in their life, that they're trying to, as it says here, trying to live their lives in that way. They've received good instruction through Prabhupada and the Vedic literatures, and they're trying to live their lives in that way. And that's a rare thing, and it's a really important thing. I mean, yesterday, we're so fortunate to be in this position that, we've come in contact with these good instructions, and that we're able to live in the association of people who are actually trying to live their lives according to these good instructions. People out there are really floundering around, because of lack of that. I mean, just yesterday, Saturday and Sunday, we were at distributing books at a reggae concert in Malibu Hills or something like that. And, you meet a lot of people, and some of these people you could see were not trying to improve themselves. They weren't trying to be, they were just quite content to be very just gross materialistic people. But a lot of them you could see were, but they don't have the information. They don't have the good instruction. They don't know what to do to try to become a better person, you see? So, anyway, so a final point is that we should remember how we're very fortunate to be in this situation, that we both come in contact with these instructions, we're trying to practice them, and we're able to live in the association of people who are also trying to do the same. And we should also remember that our good fortune will increase when we try to share that good fortune with other people. That's an important point too. We are fortunate. We're definitely fortunate, and we'll become even more fortunate when we try to share the good fortune that we've received, for whatever reason, Prabhupada's causeless mercy. When we try to share that good fortune with others, then we're going to become even more fortunate. And that opportunity is there by when we, Prasadam distribution, Harinam Sankirtan, book distribution. Janmashtami is coming up. Hopefully, we'll get a lot of guests on Janmashtami. When the guests come, be really friendly to them. We were inviting everybody we spoke to, telling them about, it's Krishna's birthday Friday, please come, And hopefully people will come. And when they come, you got to change gears a little bit and get out of the monastery mentality, and just be friendly, like in such a way that they can relate to. And everybody understands what I'm talking about. We're all capable of doing that, And it's nothing wrong with being in a monastery mentality when it's just us, because this is kind of like that. It's a monastery, nunnery kind of thing, But when the public comes and they can't understand that, they'll just think these people aren't friendly. What's wrong with them? They'll think like what I was thinking about Mother Ushanova all those years. But it's, they'll get a wrong impression. So better we just we can just drop the rocks and, just be relaxed and friendly with them, and in an attempt to try to bring them in closer to Krishna consciousness. So that was my little realization. I'll continue reading the rest of the chapter. Okay, so Vasudeva thought of his wife as follows. For the present, I read that, sorry. There is no certainty how a living entity contacts a certain type of body, just as there is no certainty how the blazing fire comes in contact with a certain type of wood. Sorry? Oh, we're up to that? Okay, Vasudeva thought of his wife as follows. For the present, let me save the life of Devaki, and then later on, you're right, if there are children, I shall see how to save them. He further thought, if in the future I get a child who can kill Kamsa, just as Kamsa is thinking, then both Devaki and the child will be saved, because the law of providence is inconceivable. Now, some way or other, let me save the life of Devaki. There is no certainty how a living entity contacts a certain type of body, just as there is no certainty how the blazing fire comes in contact with a certain type of wood in the forest. When there is a forest fire, it is experienced that the blazing fire sometimes leaps over one tree and catches another by the influence of the wind. Similarly, a living entity may be very careful and fearful in the matter of executing his duties, but it is still very difficult for him to know what type of body he is going to get in the next life. Maharaj Bharat was very faithfully executing the duties of self-realization, But by chance, he contacted temporary affection for a deer, and he had to accept his next life in the body of the deer. So on this point of how the fire sometimes leaps over one tree and catches the other, I have like anecdotal evidence supporting that. I'll just talk very, very quickly about, I can't remember what year it was, early 1980s. I was on this program called Contract Sales. We were trying to sell sets of books, and I was working with a brahmacharya in Australia called Gopinath Acharya. And at one point we were in this place, Adelaide Hills, and they had just had these, huge forest fires. And we were visiting this guy in his home who we were trying to sell a set of books to, and he was describing to us exactly that thing. He was describing to us how the fire hit one house, and then it didn't go to the next house. Somehow or another, the fire would just leap over a house and get the house across the street or get the house on the other side of that house. And so you couldn't predict it, So it's just like Prabhupada was saying here, or Vasudeva is saying here, when there's a forest fire, it's experienced. The blazing fire sometimes leaps over one tree and catches the other. You can't predict it. So in the same way, he's using this as an analogy to say that don't count on that you're going to get a certain type of material body in your next lifetime. It's going to be one that you want or one that you like. Maybe not. There's a risk. Just like there's a risk thinking that, the fire is going to skip my house, but it'll hit the other house. No, you can't tell. It's very unpredictable. In the same way, it's unpredictable what kind of body we're going to get in the next lifetime. So the intelligent thing to do is try to act in such a way that we don't get one at all. We go back to get a spiritual body on next life and not a material body. Okay, so reading on. Vasudeva, after deliberating on how to save his wife, began to speak to Kamsa with great respect. Although Kamsa was the most sinful man, sometimes it happens that a most virtuous person like Vasudeva has to flatter a person like Kamsa, a most vicious person. That is the way of all diplomatic transactions. Although Vasudeva was deeply aggrieved, he presented himself outwardly as cheerful. He addressed the shameless Kamsa in that way because he was so atrocious. Vasudeva said to Kamsa, "My dear brother-in-law, please consider that you have no danger from your sister. You are awaiting some danger because you have heard a prophetic voice in the sky. But the danger is to come from the sons of your sister, who are not present now. And who knows, there may or may not be sons in the future. Considering all this, you are safe for the present. Nor is there cause of fear from your sister. If there are any sons born of her, I promise that I shall present all of them to you for necessary action." Kamsa knew the value of Vasudeva's word of honor, and he was convinced by his argument. For the time being, he desisted from the heinous killing of his sister. Thus, Vasudeva was pleased and praised the decision of Kamsa. In this way, he returned to his home. After due course of time, Vasudeva and Devaki gave birth to 8 male children, as well as 1 daughter. When the first son was born, Vasudeva kept his word of honor and immediately brought the child before Kamsa. It is said that Vasudeva was very much elevated and famous for his word of honor, and he wanted to maintain this fame. Although it was very painful for Vasudeva to hand over the newly born child, Kamsa was very glad to receive him. But he became a little compassionate with the behavior of Vasudeva. This event is very exemplary. For a great soul like Vasudeva, there is nothing considered to be painful in the course of discharging one's duty. A learned person like Vasudeva carries out his duties without hesitation. On the other hand, a demon like Kamsa never hesitates in committing any abominable action. It is said, therefore, that a saintly person can discharge his duties without awaiting favorable circumstances. And a heinous person, like Kamsa, can act in any sinful way. A devotee can sacrifice everything to satisfy. Whereas a devotee can sacrifice everything to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kamsa became satisfied by the action of Vasudeva. He was surprised to see Vasudeva keeping his promise and being compassionate upon him, and compassionate upon him, and pleased, he began to speak as follows: "My dear Vasudeva, you need not present this child to me. I am not in danger from this child. I have heard that the 8th child born of you and Devaki will kill me. Why should I accept this child unnecessarily? You can take him back." When Vasudeva was returning home with his firstborn child, although he was pleased by the behavior of Kamsa, he could not believe in him because he knew that Kamsa was uncontrolled. In other words, he wasn't confident that something else was maybe going to happen. An atheistic person cannot be firm in his word of honor. One who cannot control the senses cannot be steady in his determination. And that's Prabhupada just is giving us the principle. We're going to hear a statement from Chanakya Pandit here, but you just heard the principle that a person who cannot control their senses cannot be steady in their determination. The great politician Chanakya Pandit said, never put your trust in a diplomat or in a woman. He wasn't talking about devotee women, and he was obviously talking about non-devotee diplomats there. Because the principle, once again, is somebody who can't control their senses, that's somebody you can't trust. They can't, because they won't be able to be steady in their determination. Those who are addicted to unrestricted sense gratification can never be truthful, nor can they be trusted with any faith. At that time, the great sage Narada came to Kamsa. He was informed of Kamsa's becoming compassionate to Vasudeva and returning his firstborn child. Narada was very anxious to accelerate the descent of Lord Krishna as soon as possible. He therefore informed Kamsa that the personalities like Nanda Maharaj and all the cowherd men and girls and the wives of the cowherd men in Vrindavan, and on the other side, Vasudeva, his father Shirasena, and all his relatives born in the family of Vrishni of the Yadu dynasty, were preparing for the appearance of the Lord. Narada warned Kamsa to be careful of the friends and well-wishers and all the demigods taking birth in those families. Kamsa and his friends and advisors were all demons. Demons are always afraid of demigods. After being thus informed by Narada about the appearance of the demigods in different families, Kamsa at once became alert. He understood that since the demigods had already appeared, Lord Vishnu must be coming soon. He at once arrested both his brother-in-law Vasudeva and Devaki and put them behind prison bars. Within the prison, shackled in irons, Vasudeva and Devaki gave birth to a male child year after year, and Kamsa, thinking each of the babies to be the incarnation of Vishnu, killed them one after another. He was particularly afraid of the eighth child, but after the visit of Narada, he came to the conclusion that any child might be Krishna. Therefore, it was better to kill all the babies who took birth of Devaki and Vasudeva. This action of Kamsa is not difficult, very difficult to understand. There are many instances in the history of the world of persons in the royal order who have killed father, brother, or a whole family and friends for the satisfaction of their ambitions. There is nothing astonishing about this, for the demoniac can kill anyone for their nefarious ambitions. Kamsa was made aware of his previous birth by the grace of Narada. He learned that in his previous birth he was a demon by the name of Kalanimi, and that he was killed by Vishnu. Having taken his birth in the Bhoja family, he decided to become the deadly enemy of the Yadu dynasty. Krishna was going to take birth in that family, and Kamsa was very much afraid that he would be killed by Krishna, just as he was killed in his last birth. He first of all imprisoned his father Ugrasena, because he was the chief king among the Yadu, Bhoja, and Anhaka dynasties, and he also occupied the kingdom of Shurasena, Vasudeva's father. He declared himself the king of all such places. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the first chapter of Krishna, Advent of Lord Krishna. So, does anybody like to say anything? Does anybody know why? Somebody might think, well, why didn't Narada Muni just keep his cool? Because it was going to happen anyway. Why did he have to accelerate things and all these babies had to be killed? Because up to that point, the babies weren't being killed. Does anybody know the reason for that? Narada Muni would have known. Those earlier sons of Vasudeva and Devaki, they were cursed by Hiranyakasipu. They were actually the grandsons of Hiranyakasipu. And at one point they performed austerities they wanted some benediction from Lord Brahma. And so they were performing austerities, and Hiranyakasipu found out about that, and he got disturbed, he got offended, that why are you worshipping Lord Brahma, and he became offended, and he cursed them, that they would be killed by their own father in some future birth like that. So that's why these seven sons of Devaki were killed one after the other, because they were actually subjected to that curse of Hiranyakasipu from previously. Anybody like to say anything about any of these wonderful things we've just heard? Yeah, on Nanda Kirtan. Sure. Oh, we got a question. We got a mic for you. Hang on. Microphone.
How is Kamsa and Devaki brother and sister? They had different fathers. How's
They're cousins. They're actually cousins, but in India they use that, like cousin brother, cousin sister, right? Yeah, they just consider it like that. So that's the culture. They weren't biological brother and sister. They were cousins, right?
yeah.
But they do like that, like Krishna and Balaram, something. I mean, sorry, like Krishna and Arjuna. They're not. Yeah.
Then it said that the demons they don't take good instruction. So is if one, even if he's trying to be devotee, if he could see that within himself, they consider that a demoniac quality, right?
It's not black and white. To the degree that we're not taking good instruction, to that degree we're being influenced by some demoniac qualities. That's your free will. Prabhupada says in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 16th chapter, he says both the demons and the demigods are born from the same, Prajapati, like that. One follows the instructions, the Vedic instructions, and the other doesn't. Prabhupada says that's the only criteria. He says that's the only criteria, how you use your free will. If you want to follow the instructions, the authorized instructions from the acharyas and the Vedic literatures, that's, a devotee. That's, a deva. And if you don't, then that's a surik. And it's not like if you're born in a demon family that you can't become a devotee. You can. And it's not like if you're born in a devotee family you can't become a demon. You can. Everybody has, that's the free will. Anybody else want to say something? Go on, pray. Otherwise, what would be the purpose of having this Krishna conscious movement? If somebody who's a demon can't become a devotee, what would be the point, right? So obviously you can. Yeah.
Jai Prabhu. It looks like that Narada Muni is involved in the conscious curing of the sons of Devaki and Vasudeva. Will Narada Muni get any reaction because of that?
No. He's acting as a catalyst. He's a pure devotee. His motive was he wanted to accelerate the appearance, as I mentioned, of Krishna. And he's inspired. Narada Muni is Daivim Prakritim Ashrita personified almost. I mean, he's definitely acting on the inspiration of the internal potency. So anything he does, there's no material reaction for anything Narada Muni does. Okay? Anybody else want to add anything? Archita, you always want to say something.
Here, Narada Muni did not directly kill anyone, but you're trying to say maybe he's implicated. But what happens when a devotee actually kills somebody, like Arjuna did? Is he implicated? No. Krishna says, I take the sinful reaction because you're doing it on my order. So Narada Muni was doing it on Krishna's order, so there's no sinful reaction that he's going to get. Even if there was, Krishna absorbs it. Because whenever the devotee carries out Krishna's instructions, anything that happens, Krishna takes, good or bad. So therefore the devotee is not implicated.
Jai. So, Krishna book, ki jai, Janmastami ki jai, all of you, ki jai. Oh, sorry. Hare Krishna. Jai. Yeah, why not? Huh? A lot of people said they're going to try to come.
I mean, why not give him the opportunity?